Good day, class. So today we're going to be talking about the Reconstruction. Now, before we begin, make sure you have either the packet or some lined paper to take the notes down. Okay. Now, just as the other videos before, be sure that you go at your own pace. This video does not take any breaks. It just goes from one section to the other. So when you are starting a section, be sure you pause the video. If you have to go back, do that. Okay. And once you're done, next time you go to class, turn in the notes into the black basket next to the door. Okay. So without further ado, let us begin. Okay. So here is the warm-up picture. Now, before you really start it, let me give you some information first. The person to your right is pretty obviously Abraham Lincoln. The person to your left, however, that is Andrew Johnson. That is the vice president to Lincoln in the second term. Now, Johnson, before he was president, one of his biggest jobs he had, he was a tailor, which means that he made clothing, and he could also basically was really good with thread and needle. Okay, so the question is this: what do you see? The second question that you have to ask yourself is, what do you think is happening in this picture? Okay, so now once you finish those questions, be prepared to take the notes. So, here are the notes. The first thing you have to realize is this. Anytime there's a war, right, in any country, after the war, there's a thing called the Reconstruction. That's when the country who was at war is rebuilding, whether it's physical rebuilding, mental rebuilding, spiritually rebuilding, whatever it may be. Okay, so in this case, the Reconstruction is after the Civil War. Now, on April 15th, 1865, at 7:22 in the morning, Abraham Lincoln is pronounced dead. Now, Andrew Johnson is sworn in as president about an hour or so later. All right. Now, he is the first president to take over another president who was assassinated. Now, you're going to hear this word come up quite a bit in this section. It's called freedman. Now, a freedman is basically, as you see it, a free man, but specifically a black man. Okay. Now, there was a department that the government made called the Freedmen Bureau. Now, this was a department and a program that was helping newly freed slaves. Now, they would give them food, clothing, they would help them out however they could. The thing is, you have to remember, a lot of these slaves, all they knew basically was the plantation. They didn't know really about the outside world, you know. So basically, their world was the plantation, and if they got to go out, it was a rare thing. So the Freedmen Bureau is basically trying to help them. Now, the minimum amount of people they helped every day was 300,000. The number would be different up and down, but the minimum would be 300,000. Now, another little fact you have to know is this. The Freedmen Bureau was not just in the South. It was in the North as well. But again, the people in the North, they could easily get jobs. They could easily get food. They were, in a sense, more welcome than the South. So they really didn't need it. But in the South, they really needed it. The other thing the Freedmen Bureau did was they basically helped the newly freed slaves get jobs on plantations. Then they basically negotiated contracts for them, right? Because the thing is, you have to remember, a lot of these former slaves, they don't know how much a fair day's wage is. How much money is fair per day, because all they ever done was work for free and just work, work, and work. So the Freedmen Bureau negotiated their contracts for them. Right? Talked to the plantation owner, discussed things. Hey, I got like 10 guys who need jobs. What do you think is fair? And then they would negotiate until they came to a price that was suitable. Now, the picture to your right, this is the depiction of from the north which is the picture on the north on the top, and a picture from that depicts the Freedmen Bureau in the south, which is on the bottom part. Now you can see there's totally contradiction one another, right? The very top one, the Freedmen Bureau guy is holding back the angry white mob, and he's basically, if you look at his hand, his left hand, he's basically telling the African Americans, hey, I kind of got you, you know, just chill. Now the picture on the bottom from the south is very derogatory. Okay, so if you look on that picture on the bottom, if you look to the left, you'll see some people working in the fields, chopping wood, things like that. And if you look to the right of it, you'll see a depiction of supposed to be a black man basically kicking back, relaxing, while the white people are working. Okay, now you could read all that stuff for yourself. You can pause it and read for it. But basically, in a nutshell, they're saying that if you support Congress, you're helping black people basically be, in a sense, lazy and, kicking back, doing nothing while they reap the benefits, while the white person is working hard and things like that. So you can see from these two pictures how they're trying to display how the Freedmen Bureau is. Okay, from the north, that they're doing their job, they're holding back, they're the thing that's stopping these angry white people from attacking the blacks, and in the south, that this is basically a handout to the newly freed slaves, and that if you resist the president and Congress, you're basically helping the white man. Okay, so again, this bottom picture, the depiction of the black person, um, you'll see a lot of this from like the 1860s and even before that, all the way into like the 1950s and 1960s. And it is derogatory and it is wrong, but that's again, it's part of history, and you can't really turn a blind eye to it. Now, in the North, there were some people who had a really, really interesting idea. One of those people was a senator named Thaddeus Stevens. And his plan, and the plan of the other people too, was to take the plantation land away from the white plantation owners and give it to the former slaves who worked there. Because their idea was this: you take that land away from the white owners, you give it to the slaves who worked there, right? Not only will they have land of their own, they will have a place where they can build a house, they can work on the land, grow their own crops, sell it, make money, and then they would be then on their own. They would be on their own 2 feet then, just as long as they continued. Okay. Um, the problem was there were some Northerners and some people who were in the Congress and stuff who felt if we take the land, those plantation owners are rich people. So they're going to be upset and they might, do something to ignite rage and some violence, and people would more likely get killed. So yeah, that's not a good thing. And the other thing was there's this thing in our country what makes it so great, and that is we, the people, we can own a part of this country, right? Your parents right now may own their house. Um, Someone may own a plot of land. They own part of this country, and that's one of the most beautiful thing about this country is that you can actually own a part of it. Now, back in the day, like in England, people could not own a part of land unless they were a noble or a king. The best they can do is basically work on the land. Maybe once all of it was grown and sold, that they might get a little portion of it, or they might get some of the crops that they grew. But that's about it. They did not own it. But in this country, anybody can own a part of this country. And so they were like, you know what? We can't get rid of that right. People should have the right to own a part of this government without being seized by the government. On March 29th, 1865, President Johnson grants amnesty to all white Southerners who take an oath of loyalty to the Union. Now, if they did this, they would get their lands back. But here's the problem. All they had to do was just say it. They didn't have to mean it. They could just say it and they would get their land back. Think about back when you were 6, 7 years old, maybe even 8. And remember when you were in school and you had to do the Pledge of Allegiance? Now, some people, they did it because they were told to do it. Some people did it because their friends were there. But a lot of people, if you can remember back, how many were actually like taking the words literally what they meant? Chances are you weren't. You just said it because everyone else was saying it or you were forced to, right? Now, think of it like this. If your teacher at that time told you, do the Pledge of Allegiance and mean it, and then you'll get, let's say, a bag of candy. I'm sure you guys would just say it, but not really know what it means. And, oh, are we going to get our candy? And if you did, you just keep saying it, right? The thing is, that's the point. There's nothing that the South can do to truly show that they mean a loyalty to the South. Okay. But Johnson came back with a little something to kind of ease the tension for the Northerners. Basically, each state in the red, as you can see on the map to your right, had to place a governor that denounced secession, that basically announced that slavery must end in the state, and that each state had to have a new constitution created. And in that constitution, it did have to say that secession was wrong, slavery is wrong, you know. But once they did all those three things, the state would then be allowed to be back into the Union. Now for the midpoint question. Do you believe that the former slaves should have gotten some land from the plantation that they worked on after the war was over? Why or why not? Now, what you're going to do is a little different from before. You're going to write down at least 2 points that favors what you believe and 1 point for the counter argument. So if you favor, say, yeah, they should get some land, give 2 reasons why. And then you need to give 1 point that basically is a counter argument why they shouldn't. Okay. And vice versa for the other side. Okay, so one more time. You need to pick 2 reasons why or why not, right? Whichever one you favor. So if you say yes, you need 2 reasons why you said yes and 1 reason why you said no. And if you're going for the other side, 2 reasons why they shouldn't and 1 reason why they should. Now, there's a writing prompt on the bottom. Okay, I strongly recommend that you use this when you write this section out. It will help you and it will complete a full sentence. And I even put the counter argument on the bottom, the however, comma, and then you give the reason. Okay.